Well, it's time to bring in my panel now, Independent MP Tanya Mihailuk and former New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott. Great to see both of you. Let's start with the polling, though, that has come out just before we came on air, and it's pretty much remained unchanged. This is under resolve. So we've got Labor at 28%, One Nation 26%, and the Coalition at 23%. What's your first response when you hear those numbers?
Well, it seems that the numbers haven't changed now for the last few months. There's certainly a big move towards One Nation. Both Labor and the Coalition are hurting as a result. So it seems like there's a bit of an anti-establishment mood right now in Australia, and it's here to stay.
The interesting thing, David, that did come out with this polling was they were asked who the preferred Liberal leader would be. Now, Angus Taylor was ahead on 30%, Andrew Hastie 10%, Tim Wilson on 5%, but 56% of those that were asked were undecided.
Well, they were looking for Josh Frydenberg's name. But it's quite clear that you can't become Prime Minister on a Liberal Prime Minister with 30% of people wanting you to be the leader. And, of course, he's winning. That's the highest number. But the reason why our polling isn't moving is because they're not inspired by the leadership. And no matter what Angus Taylor does, right or wrong, some things I like what he's doing, sometimes I disagree with what he's doing, but it just ain't moving. And it hasn't moved for months.
So you think this is they need someone like a Josh Frydenberg to come in?
Yeah,
I think if you remove Angus Taylor right now before the next election, that is going to be suicide for the Liberals.
Well, it's been done before. I mean, you know, Bob Hawke famously came in. Campbell Newman came in from outside the Parliament and had a thumping victory. So it's been done before. I'm not advocating a change now, but it is 18 months. And if we want to lose even more seats, particularly to One Nation, well, then people need to accept the fact that is what's going to happen.
Tanya, let's look at some of the legislation that has been announced today in New South Wales, and this is around the buyback scheme when it came to the guns. Now, I don't think it's surprising that New South Wales signed up, and we think that Chris Minns was the first one to come out with this idea, and then Albanese sort of jumped on it and wanted to make it a national buyback result. Do you think this is the right solution for what we saw in Bondi, or is this almost a scapegoat in a way for those that have done the right thing with their guns, that they're going to have to bring them back, and we're going to not be focusing on the real issue here, which is the Islamic extremism, and instead we're focusing on this gun buyback?
Yeah, and remember, Minns originally brought this, obviously, after the tragedy in Bondi, very quickly into Parliament. And told us there was a lot of urgency to this gun buyback scheme. And 11 months later, it still hasn't been implemented. It's now going to be implemented in November. Interestingly, states like Queensland and Victoria have rejected the idea of it, which says a lot. I was one of the MPs as part of the right-wing crossbench that actually voted against it. The Nationals also voted against it. The Liberals voted with Labor and the Greens to support it. I understand a lot of people it's a very sensitive issue. It was a complete and utter tragedy what happened in Bondi, but like you rightly alluded to, it was because of radical Islam and terrorism why Bondi happened. It's not because of law-abiding citizens who own guns. And I think ultimately what this scheme is going to do is punish people, primary producers, people out in the farms in regional New South Wales. It's not going to mean that a bunch of people who are, trading in illegal tobacco or drug dealers or part of organised crime are not going to suddenly turn up to the police station and go, here you are, here's my gun, I'm so happy to submit it back. What it will mean is that law-abiding citizens in Australia, particularly obviously in New South Wales, are going to be hurt. They're going to lose money out of it. The scheme itself is something like it's going to cost $1 billion for taxpayers. But even then, will it really compensate the people that own guns? Probably not. But look, there's still a lot of detail to, I think, unpack with this. So I think $450 for an air rifle. And when's the last time an air rifle was involved in a fatal shooting? So there's a lot to sort of unpack with the detail here. I understand there is support for this. Traditionally, there's always been a support for these schemes post a tragedy. We saw that with Port Arthur and so forth back in when Howard announced it years ago. But this time I don't think there's the same support out in the community. I think people are questioning whether this is really necessary.
What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, I like the idea of a cap. I think that's very important because there's no reason for people to have 50, 60 guns. I think Chris Minns is allowing his emotions to dictate this policy, and I like him for it. I think that's great. That's every father would allow their emotion to run the gauntlet on this sort of policy. It's not practical. I know when I was police minister, it was made very clear to me it is not practical to have New South Wales have one law and Queensland and Victoria have other laws, because you just cannot have a copper at every border crossing and say, can I please have a look in your boot to see if you've got guns that you're bringing over into the new jurisdiction, into another jurisdiction. So,
quick favor,
my advice...
if you are the kind of person who loves Australia and wants to stay ahead of what is really happening in our country's politics, hit that subscribe button and click the bell. It helps us keep this channel going. Over 90% of viewers have not yet, and it would mean the world to us if you did. Thank you. Now, back to the show. Australia's two-party system just became a three-way pile-up, and neither major party can find the handbrake. Labor sits on 28%, One Nation is breathing down its neck at 26%, and the coalition has slipped to 23%. Good day, Australia. The political class has spent decades telling you the majors are the only game in town, and the scoreboard just stopped agreeing with them. Here's the part they will not say out loud. This is not a protest vote anymore. Independent MP Tanya Mihalik put it plainly. It is here to stay. When One Nation is polling within 2 points of the governing party, you are not watching a fringe movement. You are watching the center of gravity shift, while the two old parties stand perfectly still, insisting the ground has not moved beneath their feet. So who is meant to save the coalition? That's the punchline. Angus Taylor is the preferred leader at 30%, yet 56% of Liberal voters can't even be bothered naming someone. A leadership contest where most of the team has not turned up to training. That's not a party ready for an election. That's a pub argument over who's driving home, and nobody has touched the keys.
Mate, love what you're doing. Every father in the country does. However, it's not practical.
I do want to have a look now at the Nationals. They've had their federal conference over the past few days, and some interesting things have come out of it. In particular, they really want Australians to love our country again and really get that patriotic pride back into it. But there were a few things that stood out for me. One was around the discussion about childcare choice, and I've been very vocal on this program that I think whoever can nail the childcare policy in going into the next election is going to go miles ahead to at least getting over the line. What do you make about just at least having the discussions about childcare choice and giving parents options?
Look, I think it's great that the Nationals are coming up with different policy that isn't just the usual sort of policy that you expect from them, focused just on regional parts of Australia. They're sort of thinking about the economy, and obviously thinking about childcare is really addressing an economic issue, isn't it? It's not just addressing a family issue or a workplace issue. So I give credit to Matt Canavan and his team, because I think they're giving it a red hot go. They're up for a big battle ahead for them in Victoria, in New South Wales. There's some real big battles ahead for the Nationals politically, because of the insurgents for and support of One Nation. But they're giving it a red hot go with some of their policy decisions. So you've got to give them credit for trying as they speak.
Well, they had another idea that I thought, oh, David Elliott's coming on. Let's ask David about this idea. And I don't know, you might think it already exists, but they are thinking of university students will have their HECS debts waived in exchange for time served if you go into the Australian Defence Force. And I saw that and I thought, gee, that's actually not a bad way to try and boost numbers.
Okay, so it's very naive, and it has set aside some existing programs that I don't think they've considered the existing programs that are there. First of all, if you want a degree and you want a career in the military, you go to the Australian Defence Force Academy. In the event that the Australian Defence Force Academy, which is a college of the University of New South Wales, doesn't have the degree that you want to do, well then there is an option for you, like medicine, because ADFA doesn't do medicine or dentistry, then you have the option to go to the Defence Force, join the Defence Force. They then send you away to that university that you get the degree in, and then you come back. They pay for the degree, they pay for you to do the degree, and then you come back and you have a return of service obligation. I think it's the period served at university or spent at university plus 1 year. There's also a number of other programs. You can get a half scholarship apprenticeship and do a part-time degree, or you could just go halfway through your career say, I want to do go to university, and then you come back and do that return of service obligation as well. So there are a whole lot of programs. That is not the reason why people aren't joining Defence Force. People aren't joining Defence Force because every professional vocation in the country now has a shortage. You have a shortage of nurses. We have a shortage of teachers. We have a shortage of police officers. We have a when I was Corrections Minister, we were short 1,000 corrections officers. So that's not the only written tradies. I mean, every vocation at the moment, and people don't join not many people join for the money. They might join for the regular income. They might join for the security. You get a lot of kids from broken families that love the military because that becomes their family. But I think the Nats have actually misunderstood exactly what opportunities there are. I mean, the reality is, if you want to have a lifelong learning experience, you join the military. I mean, I've got a godson in there at the moment. I've got my son's in the system at the moment. I always say to them, if they offer you a degree in brain surgery, or if they offer you a certificate in photography, you take it. And that's one of the things that keeps people in the Defence Force, but it's not the reason why they join.
Yeah, but kudos to the Nationals. I think it's actually not a bad idea.
But it already exists.
Well, not really. This is for any degree that
you know why people aren't joining the Defence Force at the moment? Because they're woke. Because people who normally would go to the Defence Force are now looking at it and they're saying, I have to have, you're an organisation which I thought was a conservative, dignified, moral organisation, and you spend half your life promoting your Mardi Gras float. I mean, all great that we've got gay people in the military. Oh, that's fantastic. We've got to represent the population that we serve. But you look at some of the stuff that they've got to go through at the moment, and that's why people are turning off. And, the fact that you can turn up one morning in the Defence Force and decide that you're identifying as a different gender just so that you can do a different basic fitness assessment.
I've got 2 kids with a lot of HECS debt. If I can get it waived, I'd send them tomorrow to the Defence Force.
Yeah, but not everybody... That's great, but not everybody's suited...
It's a great idea for the
But there's not everybody suited for the Defence Force.
Well, they'll be sorted out pretty quickly there, won't they?
Well, that's another problem, because they don't want to... People don't want people... Soldiers do not want to be serving alongside people that don't want to be there with them. They do not. So...
Now, before I let you both go, superannuation has become quite the topic. Pauline Hanson referred to it this morning. Let's take a quick listen.
A lot of Australians are doing it tough now and struggling to pay off their mortgages. In some ways, I feel that you should give them their money now and let them help them with the cost of living. Superannuation should be lightened up a bit so people can utilise this money in times of crisis. It is their money.
And then these comments follow Andrew Bragg's, where he said that superannuation was a big policy failure. What do you both think? Should we be touching super or just leave it?
Every time the Labor Party touches superannuation, the Conservatives get upset, and I don't think it should be any different when it comes to Pauline Hanson. Superannuation was probably the best thing that Bob Hawke and Bill Kilty ever did for this country. We've now got trillions stashed away. I got a bit nervous the other day when I heard Anthony Albanese call it a national asset. It ain't, mate. It's my asset. You bugger off. But I think
governments of the day see it though.
I know. Yeah. But I think this is very naive. It will put people unnecessarily onto a pension at 65. And let's remember, this is 12% that your boss pays. Not so. If we want to give low income earners more cash, give them a tax cut. Don't give them their super, which they'll just blow.
I think the debate's worth having, to be honest. So I don't mind that Pauline's actually waved into the debate. She's quite smart to do so because people do talk about it. It's a big issue. A lot of young people now are raising, why am I paying this 12% super? And now they want to, take super out of kids that are under 18 as well. So I think the fact that people spend a lifetime of paying it and maybe never ever see reap the sort of benefit from it, it's starting to make people question the value of it. I think it should go towards housing. I'm a big believer in allowing people to use it for a deposit for a home or helping to pay off their mortgage. I don't necessarily think low-income earners should be not having super paid for them because it'll actually leave them in forever being low income, to be honest. So it's not necessarily the right approach. But let's question it, because it's worth actually having that debate. So I'm glad the Coalition is having the debate. I think you do need to debate super. It's a huge $4.5 trillion industry in Australia, controls a lot of levers in Parliament, in politics, the union movement, commercially. I think you have to have the debate.
It's interesting. Out of all of the feedback and comments I get, superannuation, I can honestly tell you, has not once ever come up. And so it makes me just think maybe it's something that people are happy.
In my part of the world.
Everyone at home, let me know what you think. Tanya and David, I really appreciate you coming in tonight.
Which brings us to the policy that proves how far from reality Canberra has drifted. New South Wales is rolling out a $1 billion gun buyback, and it is handing out $450 for air rifles, not illegal firearms, not organized crime. $1 billion of your tax money, and the government is shaking down the farmer's shed, while Queensland and Victoria have already said no thanks. It is the political equivalent of locking the front door after the house has been robbed, then billing the neighbours for the privilege. Do not forget to like and subscribe if you are enjoying this. It genuinely helps us bring you these stories. But the fight that actually matters is happening over your own money. Pauline Hanson wants everyday Australians to be able to touch their super during a cost of living crisis, and her case is 3 words long. It is their money. The other side points to a $4.5 trillion national asset and warns that touching it now means poverty later. Both of them have a point, which is exactly why this debate deserves sunlight, and exactly why the political class would rather talk about anything else in the room. That is the whole story this week. A government losing its grip, an opposition that cannot pick a captain, a buyback chasing air rifles, and a fight over your retirement savings that nobody wants to have in public. Australia is being asked to choose between 2 parties that have stopped listening, and a growing number of voters have decided the answer is none of the above. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Is the preferred leader at 30%, yet 56% of Liberal voters can't even be bothered naming someone. A leadership contest where most of the team hasn't turned up to training. That is not a party ready for an election. That is a pub argument over who's driving home, and nobody has touched the keys.